Welcome to Kingdom Authority with James Alford, your source for insight on spiritual warfare, discernment, and the power of God. Be prepared for your eyes to be opened like never before and walk in the power of God's kingdom. Here is your host, James Alford.
Hello, thank you so much for joining today. This is James Alford with the Kingdom Authority broadcast. I tell you what, I am so excited today. I have a very special guest with me. But before we get into the subject matter for today, I want you to take some time and I want you to go check out my website at jamesalford.org. And there you'll find a very special documentary. It's called The Light and the Darkness. This documentary is something that God gave me about a year ago, and it basically reveals what goes on behind the scenes. It's a documentary on spiritual warfare. It talks about witchcraft, deliverance, and the power of the name of Jesus. So when you get an opportunity, make sure you go to the website and check out The Light and the Darkness. Well, like I told you before, I'm so excited for the person that I have on the podcast for today. She is my beautiful wife, and her name is Keysia Alford. Thank you so much for coming on today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited because there's so much to you as a woman of God, and there's so many giftings that are on the inside of you, and I thought it would be good to bring you on this podcast. You know, on this podcast, we talk about spiritual warfare, discernment, and the power of God, and all those things operate within your gifts. And so I want to let the people hear what God is doing in your life. And let me tell you guys a story. A couple of years ago, well, more than a couple of years ago, we've been married for almost 14 years now. But when I first met my wife, one of the first things she did was she invited me to come to church. And when I went to church, what I saw really amazed me. She was standing before the people in the church, and she was singing and giving glory to God. But it wasn't just that she was singing, but that literally the power of God was flowing throughout the room. People were getting saved. People were getting delivered. Breakthrough was moving within that place. I know all the time we hear about there's breakthrough in that place, but literally when my wife was singing up there, the power of God was moving, and literally chains were being broken right in that place. And at that moment, I knew there was truly something special about this woman. And so I'm so excited to have you on here. Now, can you tell me a little bit about your journey and how you began?
Well, I guess I can say I always have been a singer, but not really knowing who I was singing about. Um, During my childhood, I grew up in church. I grew up in a Baptist church, and I was always made to sing at different programs that we would have. And I was made to sing. But like I said, I didn't know who I was singing about, so there was no connection as I grew up and got older. I still didn't know. It wasn't until I rededicated my life to Christ and start learning about the Lord, who I was in Christ, before it became impactful at all. So that's pretty much how it started.
Okay. And so you would say when you first began to sing, and I know a lot of us have this experience. I had that experience also. So when you first began to, I guess, initially serve God, you didn't really understand the depth of what God was doing through song. I know me growing up in church,
Right.
I knew there was something about it, but I didn't really understand the depth of it. Now, I know we've had many conversations about this. Can you tell the
Mhm.
audience what happened to you at birth?
Yeah, so what happened to me at birth, my mom was afflicted, and she was bedridden and had so many different ailments going on with her, almost to a point of death. While she was pregnant with me, she had me prematurely at 6 months, and so I was born as a miracle child. That's actually verbatim what the doctor said. I was born like at 2 pounds, and they just already canceled out my life, that I wouldn't make it. But the power of God, we knew about the power of God. My grandmother knew about the power of God and the power of prayer. And it was through my grandmother and her prayers, her praying over me and believing that God had a purpose for me being here,
Right.
and that the enemy wouldn't take away what God was putting on this earth to glorify Him. And so through that, by her believing, um, the Lord just began to heal me right before the doctor's eyes, right before my mother's eyes, and not only healing me, but healing my mother as well. So we're
Wow.
just two walking, living testimonies.
Wow, amazing, amazing. So you would say, or any person would say that, there was a lot going on in your life before you even had an understanding of what was going on. You were attacked at birth, and through a miracle, God saved you. But then you found yourself in church, worshiping and giving praise to God, and not really understanding what God was doing. But there was something great that God was doing in your life. Can you kind of talk about when you came to the understanding of what God was doing in you, and that kind of transition from the world and just living your life to really understanding what God was doing with you in the spirit?
Yeah, and so just like at birth, it seems like, the enemy's been trying to assassinate me and my assignment since birth, and it's a continuation. It's a spiritual warfare. I feel like my life is seems like is in that, but it keeps me rooted and grounded and in prayer, right? So one of the things that I experienced in transitioning from the world to the to the spiritual realm, um, I would encounter, even when I started going to church and I knew, hey, I want to give this, thing a try. I want to live right for God. What does that look like? I really want to, give this thing a full run. That's when I began to have anxiety attacks. I began to suffer from panic attacks. I believe I started to see demonic activity. I started to dream about demonic activity, see demons, hear them in my dreams. So if it was a fear that the enemy was trying to um, put on me, attack me with. And anybody that would be, attacked in that way, especially trying to get out of the world, trying to go into the, things of God, it's fearful and it make you want to stop,
Right.
because that was a very, very scary thing. But I'm thankful for the tribe that I had around me, and the aunts and my mom and my grandmother to, help me to understand what was going on. Because when you don't have an understanding of spiritual warfare and demonic activity, then it will shake you, and you'll say, well, I don't need this. I just, because I wasn't being attacked when I was living for the world. So
Right.
those are some of the things. And not only that, James, just going past that and trying to get past that, when I started to sing, um, and the things were, shaving off of me, it was a process. It wasn't just everything was dropped, but as I was pursuing God, I started to sing. And I didn't know that was my gift and my purpose, right? And so when I began to sing in front of the people, I would begin to suffer those things right there. I begin to sweat. I begin to almost have a blackout. Everything in the room would turn dark and I wouldn't see the people. And I also started seeing spirits on people, and I didn't understand what in the world was happening. And so that was a very scary thing. When I would be done with singing and worshiping, and like you said, I would see people like really, really crying out for God, and understanding what the anointing was and being in that grace.
Hmm.
Um, I would suffer that. I would go off in the back and start having panic attacks, like I couldn't breathe, like the enemy was attacking my lungs or my breathing. I would just go into, and I would suffer that every time.
Wow.
But it wasn't until I realized that I had authority to come against it. So there's
Mhm.
levels to this thing, right?
Right.
And so learning even more about God, and the authority that He's given us, and the power of the tongue, speaking over myself, not just waiting for somebody to come and I tell them what's going on and they pray for me. I had to be able to be in position and know that, hey, I can speak against this thing, because, and then I had to understand, James, the reason why the enemy was attacking me that way is because there is something on the inside of me that he was trying to kill, that the Lord was trying to get over to the people. So I had to really, really gird up and be strong and know that. And that's what propelled me forward, right? Anytime someone's trying to pull you back from something, there's a purpose in why they're trying to do it.
Right.
So when I understood that, then, it got better.
So
But I tell you, those experiences were something else.
so you start to come to the realization that, hey, this has been a war that's been going on. Now I'm coming to the place where I realize it's a war, and I think a lot of people are like that in their life, where they've been fighting longer than they have the understanding of the fight, or even realizing the source of the fight, or realizing the reason why the fight is going on. And so you begin to come into a revelation of who you were and what God wanted you to do. But it's a
That's
rough
right.
journey. And, I know we see, and we talk about it all the time. We see in the news many people who are singers and worshipers for God, they're turning from Christ. They're falling into sin and all types of crazy things. What do you think? What do you think those pitfalls are that cause worshipers to begin to pull back? I know we talked about your experience, but what are some other things that worshipers fall into when they're up there singing and the devil's trying to stop them and souls are getting saved? What are some of those pitfalls that worshipers deal with?
Oh man, what happens when you come off? I hate to say stage, but I want to say that so people can know what happens when you come off that platform.
Hmm.
It's when you come off of that platform and how you're living, and so compromising. That's one big word that I've seen that worshipers and singers, artists, let's put them all into one little uh, pot, right?
Right.
Um, it's compromising that, and I believe when you compromise, you give
Yes.
the enemy room to work more into in your life, and they don't understand it's a slow kill.
Right. Right.
And so that yeah, I definitely think that one word is what I've seen just as a whole, because I know we're timing on the podcast. Let's just stick with that one word, dealing with that that compromise spirit that will
Hmm.
come over them to dabble into things of the world that will allow Satan and the enemy to come in and take over the ministry that they're called to do, and cause it to be not as effective.
Right, right. So you're saying a spirit of compromise comes in. What are some things that you think entice that spirit of compromise? I know money and success are some of the things,
Hmm.
and other things that people deal with that draw them away. We even see people who were once on fire for God, worshiping for God. Now they're worshiping and singing for the world. It's
Yeah.
it's almost like Satan has his bag of tricks for the individual, and he puts it out there to draw people away from the things of God.
Well, I'm gonna say one thing. I think you said it was money. Let's just say this. You can give an example of people can run for a long time and do things for a long time helping, but somewhere in those years, somebody um, distract them or got in their ear, or the enemy start working and be like, hey, I need to be start getting paid for this thing.
Right, right,
Because I've arrived.
right,
I am setting up this atmosphere, and if it wasn't for me, the atmosphere and the preacher won't even be at this particular moment, this point.
right,
I was the highlight of the service.
right,
Just
right.
getting into idolization, and that compromise as far as this is like somebody owe you something for doing the
Hmm.
work of Christ,
Right,
right? So
right.
somebody owed me some money now. And so what happens is, well, this, you're not doing that for money. You're not in the budget to do that. You're operating in your gifts. So the enemy will send somebody and say, hey, well, you can do this too. If you come and sing for me over in the world, we'll pay you. And
Right.
so before you know it, you'll start compromising. You'll start doing things in the world, and you'll start Saturday night, and then Sunday morning you'll be up in the church, and they say, "Wait a minute, that's
Right,
the same person I saw in that club." You
right,
know.
right.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's he has a bag of tricks for the individual, and many times it's funny though when I talk to different people, many times it's the same group of tricks. He just formulates it for that individual, but it's the same, lust, money, success, finances, it just goes, vanity, pride and stuff like that. He goes over the
Vanity
same.
and pride.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the same group of
The same
tricks,
stuff.
and he pushes people and gets them to stumble for one reason or another. Um, and sometimes they'll appear to be successful in their move. It almost seemed like it was a good thing for them. And so that begins to justify, because of the appearance of good, I think it begins to justify them and the decision they made, not realizing that they have put their soul in a desperate and dire position.
And you know what, James? And that's so right, because one thing about it is, you said, the same tricks, just kind of camouflage, look a little different, is served on
Yes,
a different platter. That's because the enemy has one job, and that's to kill, steal, and destroy.
that's right. You don't have
But
to care how
so
he
to
does it.
get that, he don't care how you do it, as long as he does it.
That's right. That's right. And so, as Christians, we have to be aware of that. And I like what you said about arriving. I think that's one of the things that really hurts Christians, is that we feel like, you become successful, in any capacity in ministry. Now you have arrived, meaning that people almost feel invincible, or feel like they can't stumble, or they can't make mistakes, not realizing they needed Jesus at their point of where they think they arrived at. They need him just as much then as they needed him when they first got saved. And that's the only thing that can keep them away from Satan's devices. And I think that's the thing a lot of Christians need to come to understanding. And look, you never get beyond, needing Jesus or needing his grace and his power to keep you out of sin.
That's
Now,
right. It's good.
not only are you a minister of song, and this is one thing I really love about you, just to be honest with you, that you're an inspiration to women. How has God used you? So you're singing, you're setting people free, you're bringing the church into a place of worship. The power of God's moving, souls are being saved. But God gave you even more, like a laser beam type gifting specifically for women. Can you speak upon how God is using you to impact women around the world?
Yeah, well, I tell you, social media has been my best friend. I can speak on that as well. Through online groups that I've formulated for wives, single, divorced, wherever you are, it's something that the Lord would give me to do in that, and also women's conferences that I've been having for over 12 years,
Hmm.
that I would have yearly, um, from TV show, everything, whatever God whenever he opens up a door, I try to use it. And so that's basically what he's been doing as far as impacting the women. And not only that, I guess through song as well, because I have songs that kind of geared just towards women
Right.
as well.
Right, and just
Yeah,
their experiences and stuff like that. Now,
that's right.
one song which is my favorite, of course, is Mississippi Tales. Can you tell us a little bit about that song, and how it really helps women?
Right, exactly. Well, I do. It's actually for both genders. However, um, I talk about I could have been a breathless woman in the song, so it makes people think that it's just for women. So I
Yes.
have men that sing it too and say, "Hey, I
Well,
could
I
have been a
sing it right.
breathless man as well." Right. So it's not just a song just for women, but I tell you, um, that song, the Lord just, I tell you, I'm not a. You have some songwriters, James, that will just write all day long. This is what they do.
Hmm.
Well, that's not me, right? But God will give me songs, and I know when He's giving me a song that's gonna really be impactful, and so that was the one. And I was praying for a song, and He just dropped that song in my spirit in the middle of me cooking for you guys, and I had to take a break. I almost burned the food, head to the table, and right on a sheet of old homework,
Sure.
And so He just dropped the everything in my heart, and He just connected the dots. And I tell you, when you're open and listening to God, and don't put him in a box, I tell you, he has really, really used that song to just propel me and the gift into areas that I didn't even have a clue, just new territory into new things. And it's just been amazing. And I'm very honored.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, recently you launched a TV program called A Woman's Journey with Keysia Alfred. What is your goal with that show?
So my goal with that particular show was just to touch lives of women, just to bring hope to them, restoration. Hopefully they can, tune into a show. We're trying to touch many, many topics and foundational topics, spiritual topics of things that they can be very relatable to the everyday woman.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Now, I know how to get in touch with you, but tell the people that are listening right now, how can they get in touch with you? How can they connect with you in your music, your women's ministry, your television program? How can they get in contact with you?
One of the best ways, James, is they can go to www.keziaalford.com. That's my website, keziaalford.com. You can send me a message right there. It comes right to me, and we can communicate that way. Also, I'm on social media all of the time. So it's Keysia Alford on Facebook, Keysia Alford Music on Facebook. Also on Instagram, Twitter, and I'm on Clubhouse now. We have a new platform that we have out called Clubhouse. So I'm on that as well under my name. So I've made
Okay.
it easy for people to contact me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm excited because I get to contact you every day. Awesome.
Yes, you do.
But I am so excited to have you on this program, and I look forward to even having you on in the future as we grow the podcast and as we talk on various subjects. I may even have you come on and host a show on a particular topic. So I look forward to having you be a part. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Once again, this is James Alford. I've been interviewing my beautiful wife, Keysia Alford, talking about warfare in worship. Make sure you continue to tune in every single week where we bring you topics in relation to spiritual warfare, discernment, and the power of God. And if you want to reach out to me, make sure you go to my website at jamesalford.org. Well, God bless you. I love you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Kingdom Authority Podcast. Join us every week for powerful teachings, insightful interviews, and testimonies of God's power. To contact us for more info on books and articles from James Alford, make sure you go to jamesalford.org.